And I will elaborate a little bit more on the intellectual dishonesty. I also come across something, about, I've seen it a little bit, where there's some comments on YouTube about how liberals don't deserve a higher education, because of the way they think. And I think when you always paint the left as, oh, or they claim to be tolerant, but they're not. I just think that that's neither factually accurate or, it is also intellectually dishonest in itself. Because I've seen a lot of that where, and again with the response videos, and then there's comments claiming, oh, we should just, have an IQ test or something, or some type of political test to see who leans what, and we shouldn't allow these people into our colleges. You see that where a lot of exposed videos where liberals get supposedly dragged or something, stupid shit like that. And for people who claim that we're so intolerant, I find that very ironic. Alright. And so, with y'all, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to come across things that make you very uncomfortable, and it's not always other people's job to educate you or to comfort you when something makes you uncomfortable or upset. It's kind of like the Jane Elliott thing where she does her exercises. There was a white woman who walked out and she was very upset. She didn't learn anything from that, really, except for the fact that she could fucking walk away. A lot of people of color can't do that, and stuff like that. So that's part of the reason, I have a problem with that as well. So if if you've grown up in a secluded white community, which has a lot to do with redlining, by the way, if race doesn't matter, why is your community usually so white? And why is their community usually so black or Latino? Because they segregated us. And the fact that we're still not all living together, it sort of shows that racism is still very alive. That's a good, question for y'all. If race doesn't matter, why is your community so, what do you call it? It started with an S. Oh my gosh. You're still, secluded from other people of color. Or you're not of color, sorry. From, people of color. And so, I do think that logging onto Tumblr, young white kids logging onto Tumblr, I think it's very hard for them. I think it's a new cultural shift. And that it's going to start a lot of conversations. And I just wish for the future that white children will be educated on that. Especially cousins like my white cousins, who say things like that. They're little, they don't understand so much, but they take a lot of things from their parents. Y'all don't realize that. There's also this assertion that classes on white privilege would promote anti-white racism. Especially if you're somebody who thinks the travel ban is okay, that's complete bullshit. It's the same, well, not the same, but if you get mad at liberals for speaking out and thinking that it singles people out, but you think that white privilege classes singles you out, then you've got a really intellectually dishonest problem. That's not very honest. You're not, it's a fallacy. You can't go through life arguing with people of color and expecting them to take you seriously when you do that. We can't argue with you, so much. We're not going to argue with you anymore until our face turns blue. It's not going to be the way it is, we can't, you see, that's the things that I like to call out, because I'm like, that's not logical. And y'all like to mention logic a lot. A lot of the things that y'all sprout are not necessarily logical, and you'll see that a lot of the times if you just take a step back and look. And that's what I want to encourage y'all to do. You need to, you would figure out a lot about yourself as well if you just take the time to educate yourself on, even history. Let's see, Texas, for example, where I live. A lot of my people have a lot of very rich history. They used to actually hang Mexicans here in Texas by the thousands. In Arizona, New Mexico as well. Texas too. Did you know that? It's that type of thing. The school system was meant to teach you, a certain version of history. It's not necessarily an accurate one. And I also think you will learn a lot about your history as well if you, open up your eyes a little bit. It's kind of like that thing, God forbid you learn something. There was somebody on I think it was Tumblr, a white woman, and she was like, oh, I won't take such and such class because it's you know, an agenda. And it's just like, God forbid you learn something about feminism or anything. You know, y'all might disagree with some of it, which is fine. Y'all might agree with some, and that's, you're gonna take such and such from it, and you know, there's not any harm in it. It's not going to leave you racially oppressed like you would like to believe. That's not gonna happen. There's a certain history. There's actually an analogy I have made. Alright, and it's about a pool. And there's a pool in my city, you know, that we fill up every summer. And so that's where I kind of got it from. Because I remember this one pool. It's not necessarily a small town, but it is kind of medium sized. So we only have one pool. A public pool. So, let's say it's the summer. And the summer represents, let's see, like the government and everybody in higher power that's beating down on you. The sun. It's hot, it's summer, it's sunny. And you're the pool. Or the pool. You're the water, right? And let's say that the pool is drained. But there's a little bit of water in that pool. Like a very small amount. And so that small amount of water would represent your ancestry. Your white ancestry. You may have faced some xenophobia in the past. You may have had faced hardships, right? Alright, but those systems, such as the sun, which is the government, the sun, it will surely dry up all that water. And even if you take small incidents of racism and you keep on pouring water into there with buckets, which is what isolated incidents of racism are in this case, you take a couple buckets and you pour it in, that sun is still going to soak up all your water. You don't have a racialized experience like we do in America. Your pool's going to dry up. Now, people of color, black people have had slavery, you know, and Native Americans, they get, you know, genocide. There's also, with Mexican people, there's also sort of this, people argue, you know, they go back and forth between considering us Native and not, basically. So, we kind of had a genocide. That is in my ancestry, technically, but, you know, I'm not trying to claim anything. Definitely not. But, yeah, there's a certain type of, our water is more full. So even if y'all keep pouring buckets as well, and the summer sun, it still won't be able to, you know, make us dry. We've got it full. That, you see what I mean? That's my analogy. That was, should have been so short to explain, but I took forever. I'm so sorry. You know, you don't have that experience in the U.S. That is not something that, you know, your people have gone through. You may have gone through it to a small extent, but to claim you've gone through it just as much, and that it still, you know, affects you to this day is not necessarily true. It's not accurate. And to deny that it doesn't affect us today is also not factually accurate, and it is intellectually dishonest to say that. And so that's what I wanted to try to get across to you. I also wanted to, you know, get across to you that, you know, your future generations of, you know, your own children, it would just benefit both sides very well if you educated them on these issues. You know, it might contradict what you've been raised to believe, but it's not really going to hurt your lifestyle. You can still be proud of, you know, being German or whatever. You can still be proud of being from the South. But you don't have to engage in, you know, fights with people. You don't have to deny their experience. That would never make sense to me. You know? I'm a very understanding person, and some of y'all would also like to consider yourselves very understanding, but whenever it comes to race, y'all seem to fall ever so slightly short. And it's one of the only things that a lot of people who are sympathetic and everything else, they always seem to fall short in that category when it comes to understanding people of color. And I will be honest with you about that. And so, you know, I just don't want to have an issue later, you know, with our children, where they're all mad at each other still, you know, over what's going on, and nobody understands. You know, you can learn, as I said, you can learn a lot, and it could be very cool, it could be very frightening at times. You know, what you may or may not learn. A lot of things won't fit your, you know, desired narrative, what you were raised to believe, but, I mean, it could be something very exciting for you. exciting for your family, exciting for your children. And although I will say that not a lot of, if you're very conservative and Southern, your family members that, or especially older, might not go with that. I'm just gonna warn y'all on that. Yeah, go for that. But anyway, I hope y'all stay safe, and even if you are a Trump supporter, don't let people pick on you, you know, just... But do try to understand people's point of view. I'm not saying that, you know, everybody on the left is always, you know, correct on everything. It's just, a lot of us are tired of hearing the same bullshit. And I just wanted to let you know, a lot of y'all's bullshit is very intellectually dishonest, and there's a whole world of people, as I said, that we see right through it, and we don't always understand why y'all don't, you know. Alright, but anyway, y'all stay safe.